Okay, guys, I am so sorry about the tech issues that we had this morning, and it just seems to be on my end, so I apologize. So we're going to go ahead and finish the notes that we started, which Miss Preston couldn't hear any of you responding to me, and then eventually I got totally removed from the meeting, and my internet went down, and it's still down. So we're going to go ahead and finish the notes. So please make sure that you have your science notebook, and you have your red science folder so we can pull some notes out just like we do with math. Your pencil, your highlighter, colored pencils, we're gonna get creative, and your glue stick, and of course your scissors because you're gonna need to cut your notes out. So I first of all want to say how proud I am of all of you. This is a struggle for all of us, but you're doing great. And we will just persevere and do what we need to adjust. So let's pick up where we left off. So your notebook is set up to be a helpful tool for you as a scientist. I'm going to make you dizzy for a second. I'm going to make you higher so we can see the whole notebook. And as we learn all kinds of things in science, we will be using this notebook, sorry about that, and organizing our stuff with a right side and a left side, okay? And our left side and our right side are going to be set up very differently. So let's just make sure your notebook's in order. You should have your rubric pages, which is where we left off, which we'll finish in a second. You should have this page on the inside cover of your notebook. Then you should have your title page that should have a lot more than what Mrs. Preston has. That is, what is science to me? So this was our first science talk. What are some things around us that have to do with science? And this can be a working document. You can add to this page anytime. Then we set up our table of contents pages, and we have nothing on this left side. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages set up the same way to list all our pages into our table of contents, with our date column being over here, our title column being in the middle, which is where we'll write our titles, and then our page number over to the right. So all those pages are set up the same way. Then we got to our first lesson, and this is what we did last week. And we talked about the differences between our right side and our left side of our notebook. So this is supposed to be a notebook opened up to a right side and a left side. And this is where I taught you that your right side is where you're going to put in all the information that I teach you through your notes or handouts. Closed notes, which is what we're doing, where you're filling in a vocabulary word as Mrs. Preston teaches. So we're doing our right side together. The left side of our notebook, so on this side of our notebook, that's our left side. And this would be a whole notebook, so my left side would be over here, is your output. And of course, you should have a date and a page number. So this is page 2 because the page right before it was page 1. So your left sides will always be the page before. Your left side is your output. That's your creative side. That's where you're going to process what you were taught or what you understood. It's going to be very colorful because you're going to reorganize your new information creatively through poems, acrostic poems, cartoons. We'll do drawings, diagrams, illustrations. We'll make foldables, flip books, all kinds of things this year. This is where you're going to express yourself, what you learned that was new. You're going to apply your own learning of what Mrs. Preston just taught you on this side of your notebook and your feelings. And then my hope is that last week you finished up and you added some ideas to remind you of what your right side will look like or be like, or what you will do on your right side. We added these together. You should have a lot more. And what's your left side going to be to you? Remind yourself. Date, this was page 1. Date, this was page 2. Okay, and we will be working on our next spread of our notebook here in a few minutes. But let's go back to this page, because this is where our debacle started, as we were going over how you're going to get graded on your notebook. Okay, so hopefully you are caught up. If not, you can pause, okay, and you can rewind in this video, okay, because this video is actually going on YouTube. So if you go to my YouTube channel, if you can't open it here, you go to my YouTube channel, it's on there. We talked about right side, and hopefully you highlighted things like you're going to date each page, you're going to write the title, you're going to number each page. That's where you're gonna write down your information. It's your input, your teacher lecture notes, okay? So let's zoom in on what we should have highlighted over there. And go ahead and get that highlighted. Again, pause if you need to. And then we talked about what our right side's gonna look like as far as how I get a point. Now, your right side is either worth 0 points or 1 point. 0 points means you have an incomplete page, you have lots of spelling errors, it's sloppy, missing page number, pages glued incorrectly. But to get your 1 point on your right side, you can highlight that. You would have a neat page, you would have the page number, you'd have good spelling because you're doing it with Mrs. Preston. Okay? Then we went over to our left side. This is your most important side. And your left side is the me page. The let me side. It's your output. It's where you're going to show me what you learned. We're going to use every left side page. Okay? So if we learn something on the right side, you better believe Miss Preston's going to assign something for you to do on the left side to show your learning. You will always number and date those pages as well. You will use color. You will be creative. This is where you'll be making connections to what you've learned, where you'll be reflecting on what you learned. You're going to create stuff like maps, pictures, diagrams, songs, mind maps. A lot of this we'll do together, but you will be doing the actual task together, meaning I'll assign it. That's your left side. Okay? This is your most important side because, and this is where we left off, your left side can either get 0 points, 1 point, or 2 points. I don't think anybody's sitting out there saying I want 0 points, so we're not even going to go over this column. Hopefully not many of you are saying 1 point's fine because that's just doing the bare minimum. We want to be extra. How am I going to get 2 full points for my left side? Here's what we have to do. So we're going to just focus on this box. Your left side should be neat as well. It should have a page number and a title, and it's above and beyond effort. That's your keywords for your left side. It demonstrates more understanding than what's on the right side. That means you didn't just copy what's on your right side onto your left side. You showed more of an understanding of what Mrs. Preston taught to you. Okay, so that's how you would get 2 points, and that's what you want. 2 points on your left side, 1 point on your right side, and that's how you're going to keep your notebook organized. Okay? All right, so keep that in mind when we're doing science. This notebook is going to be a science grade at the end of each quarter. Okay, so we've got to add something to our table of contents that we forgot last week, and that is our right side, left side notes. So open up to your very first page of your table of contents, and we're going to add our first lesson, which is our left side, right side. So we're going to add these 2 pages to our table of contents. Okay, so our title, we're going to title it, I think this one has a title. Nope. Oh, yep, over here. We're going to title these pages Science Notebook Rules, and we're going to put them together, pages 1 and 2. Okay, and we're going to date it for the first day that we did it, which was last week. We don't have to put the year because we know it's 2020. And we are going to title it in our table of contents the same that we did on the page, Science Notebook Rules. And that was on pages 1 through 2. Sometimes if the pages go nicely together, that means they're pretty much the same information. We can do a span of pages. You've seen that in a table of contents. Okay, so now we're ready for our next lesson. So we learned about our setting up our notebook. Left side is going to be the me side, where I'm going to do all my creative tasks to show what I learned on the right side that day. Okay, all right, we're ready for our next spread. So we're going to do our notes first. So we'll always do our right side first. Okay? All right. I want you, and I'm moving a little fast so I can get this posted for you guys because I know you're waiting for it. So just pause the video at any time. Take out your red science folder. We're going to go ahead and take out the 2 pages, actually 3 pages. 1, 2, 3 pages that we will use today. Okay, and they should be the next 3. I'm just gonna slide them out and then I'll show you which ones I did. One has a bunch of SpongeBob's on it and it says, I am a scientist, this guy. Okay, the one under him says, what is a scientist and think like a scientist. And then the third one we're gonna do today is science tools, okay? All right, this one will be in another video because I'm going to be, actually we'll do this one in this video and then you're gonna watch another video where Miss Preston shows you all these tools live in action, okay? So we will do this one in this video. Okay, so we're gonna move kind of fast. All right, and then you can put your red science folder away because we've pulled out the notes pages we need. And you should have these three. SpongeBob, what is a scientist? What is a scientist notes? We're actually gonna do that one first, and then your science tools, okay? All right, we're gonna do this guy first. This is gonna be our right side, okay? So just like in our math notebook, we're gonna trim around that rectangle and it'll fit nicely. Let's go ahead and get them all cut out. I think that'll save some time. So we're gonna cut him out. Again, if I move too fast, just hit pause, because I'm quick. We're gonna cut out all of these pages, and then they'll be all cut, and we won't have to use our scissors anymore. Okay, so there's gonna be our next right side notes. Put him to the side. Now this page, listen carefully. You only need one of these. We just copied it on one page because one little strip of paper could have gotten lost. So watch what I'm doing. Don't worry about these directions down here. I am just gonna cut out the top one because it's the easiest one. That is all we need. All the rest can just go into the garbage or your recycling bin. You just need one of those. Got it? Okay, put him to the side. And then we'll go ahead and cut this guy out so it's all ready to rock and roll. Have these measured pretty much, so if you cut right along the lines, they should fit in your notebook. I'm gonna trim the top just a smidgen, but don't cut off that title or that picture of that tool. Okay? All right, so now we have this, and we have this. Okay, we're ready to go. We're gonna do these notes first. So what is a scientist? Do you think you're a scientist? I bet after this page, you'll know you are a scientist. So what is a scientist? Well, scientists observe things, okay? So scientists do a lot of what we call observations. I'll go a little bit closer for you since we're taking some notes. Scientists observe things and they ask, I bet you know the answer, questions. Remember, spelling counts. So already, think about yourself. Do you observe things around you? Probably. And do you ask questions? I know you do, because all children ask lots of questions. Scientists also might collect interesting things. And I know some of you have already shared that you collect, some people like to collect shells from the beach. Some people like to collect certain gems or minerals. Some people like to collect certain types of animals, like farmers that raise certain animals. I would consider that a collection. That's all being a scientist. Scientists may work in museums. Like Mosey, I'm thinking. Or laboratories. Well, let's see, am I spelling that right? Laboratories. Sorry. Okay. That does not look right. Is that spelled right? Miss Preston's gonna check her spell checker. That's spelled right? Laboratories. Yeah, I guess it is. This looks kind of funny. Scientists also try. We're gonna underline try. To answer their questions. Now I underline try because not all scientists get answers to their questions right away or even at all. I mean, think about all those scientists that are trying to find a cure. Or let's talk about what's going on in the world right now. We have scientists trying to find a effective vaccine for the COVID virus, which is why you're all home. So they're trying, but they haven't found the answer yet. Okay, so doctors are scientists. So let's think like a scientist, because that's what you're going to need to do this year. To be a scientist, it means it takes lots of curiosity. And you know what? Kids are naturally curious. So when you're curious about the world around you, you are already thinking like a scientist. Scientists think, if you think like a scientist, you have lots of questions about the world around you, and you are willing to find out the possible answers. And we're gonna put our period there now because I'm writing really big. So when you think like a scientist, let's do a little thinking bubble all the way over here. When you think like a scientist, it actually means you are a problem solver. And to be a problem solver, you have to understand that you don't always find the answers to your problems. But you keep working on it. That's what scientists do. Okay? All right, there's a question down here that you can answer for homework or e-learning work at home. All your work's homework. What is something that you did not realize about scientists? You're going to answer this after we talk about what we're going to do on our right side. Our left side. So after we get through this whole lesson, what is something you did not realize about scientists? It could be in here, but it could also be on your left side that we're going to do now. All right, let's go ahead and glue him to our right side with glue stick. Okay. Whoops, sorry. Just banged the phone, my tripod. Just another tech issue. Okay, don't forget you're going to go back and answer this question. Okay, after you learn a little bit more about being a scientist. Because hopefully by now you're like, yeah, I observe things. I ask questions about the world around me. I don't work in a museum or a laboratory yet, but I might one day. I'm curious. I look around the world around me and I try to find possible answers. I'm a problem solver, so maybe you are a scientist. All right, today is Peyton's birthday. So it's September 4th, 2020. This is going to be actually page 4 because the left side's going to be page 3, and that's what we're going to do next. Okay, so don't forget to answer this question after you learn a little bit more. Okay, go ahead and grab your SpongeBob guy. And we're going to glue him to the top of our left side. Okay, now this would have been a lot more effective if we were doing it in person because we could share out our ideas, or live, I should say, but that's just not an option for us right now, okay? So we're gonna do our best, but we're gonna glue him to the top. You'll have fun doing this assignment. Make sure you put a good enough amount of glue. I need to glue my other side so that your pages don't come unstuck in your notebook. All right, he's gonna go on your left. You've got your What is a Scientist on your right. And we're going to date this page too. And he's page 3. Okay, so this is what we're going to spend time doing. When you think about what a scientist looks like, do you picture an older man with crazy hair, perhaps Einstein, a lab coat and bubbling beakers? Well, many people do, but anyone can be a scientist. When you ask questions about the world, so let's highlight that. When you ask questions about the world, when you make observations, when you look for possible information and you try to figure out how something works, or you try to solve a problem, you are acting like a scientist. So lots of jobs in the world are considered scientists. We just might not realize that. And that's what we're going to think about here. We're going to make ourselves look and be a scientist and think of a job that we want. When we complete our page, you're going to need, I want you to follow your directions up here, because when you go off and work independently, this is what you're going to want to pay attention to. Think about yourself as a scientist. What kind of jobs are in the world that ask questions, try to find answers, are curious about the world around us? You probably know some of the names of certain jobs that are considered scientists, but there's some that maybe we never considered to be a scientist, and they are. Like a doctor, for instance. Doesn't a doctor ask you questions if you go in and you're not feeling well? Of course. And they try to find out what's wrong with you? Well, a doctor is considered a scientist. So let's think about a doctor. Some doctors are interested in teeth, dentists, right? Where do you do your work if you're a dentist? Well, you probably do it in something similar to a laboratory. You do it in the dentist office. So your dentist office has all different kinds of equipment or tools. Different than what, let's just say, a heart doctor has, a cardiologist. Those two types of doctors would have different equipment. What are you wearing if you're a dentist or a cardiologist? Your outfit as a doctor might look very different than a scientist that's out in the real world, let's just say a marine biologist. A doctor, like a dentist or a cardiologist, would be wearing different gear than a marine biologist would. So think about yourself. If you could be in a scientist type job, where would you work? What would you be? And I want you to draw a line, kind of separating your two sides below your directions into two sides. And on this side, we're going to do a web. And this is what I wish we were doing live, because you guys probably come up with a whole lot more things than I do. And we're going to do a web. A web is very much like what we did here, where we put something in the middle and we either write words or draw pictures around it. So let's think. You can think with me. I'm going to talk. If you think of another scientist type job, you're going to add it to your web. I'm going to trust that you're doing it. So I already said that there's some scientists in the world called doctors. Doctors are a type of scientist. I also said marine biologists are a type of scientists. And some of you told me you wanted to be a marine biologist when you wrote about having grit. How about someone that studies weather? Like we watch it on the TV. I love weather. They're called a meteorologist. Ologist. I always have to sound these words out. A meteorologist studies weather. It looks like they would study meteors, but they study weather. Do you know what a scientist that studies space is called? Perhaps you're talking back to me right now in a good way. They're called astronomers. You ever heard of an astronomer? Whoops, excuse me. I was right. No, yep, I was right. Am I right? Astronomer. Is that right? I gotta look that up. See, lots of science words I gotta look up. I think that's right. For some reason, my words aren't looking right now. Let's type that in and see. Use my computer for that. Do you ever do that? Astronomer. This should be an O. I did spell it wrong. And see, that's okay. Astronomer. M-E-R. I was right there. There we go. So those would be scientists that study astronomy, like the stars and things that are in space. What are some other scientist jobs you know? Well, maybe you don't want to be a doctor. Maybe you want to be a nurse. Nurses could be considered a scientist. How about a scientist that studies old fossils? I'm gonna do my arrow right here. They might be called an archaeologist. Some of you might want to be an archaeologist. How about one that studies or works in a zoo and takes care of the animals in a zoo? Do you know what they're called? Maybe some of you said a zoologist. I'm squeezing it. A zoologist. Someone that studies life, like cells and stuff. They're called a biologist. When you get into high school, you'll take biology. That means you study life. All right, now this is on your left side. So perhaps today you go research on your computer some other scientist jobs out there and add some more arrows. You can get creative with your arrows and list a few more scientist jobs out there. Okay, so maybe one of these, I know a couple of you told me you wanted to be a marine biologist. Well, that would be a scientist. Maybe some of you were like, oh yeah, I've often thought about having a job where I go and study the fossils and whatnot. That could be an archaeologist. Or maybe I piqued your interest and you said, well, I've always wanted to be a dentist. That's a doctor. That's a scientist. Well, now you're going to think of yourself as the scientist. So on this side, you're going to title the top, Me as a Scientist. And you're going to put that in a cloud. This is where you're going to get really creative. And you're going to think about yourself as a scientist. It could be one of these that we listed in our web, or one you thought of on your own and you added to your web, because you should be adding more scientist jobs to your web on your own. Remember, if your left side looks exactly like mine, then we didn't go above and beyond in our work. Remember, above and beyond gets you your 2 points. That means you do more than what you learned. So you're going to think of yourself as a scientist. You're going to pick a scientist type job. If it was me when I was 10 years old, I did want to be a marine biologist. I wanted to swim with the dolphins, and I wanted to learn more about how they live and interact with their habitats. So perhaps I would have drawn myself as a marine biologist. You've got to think about these bullets up here. 1, 2, 3, 4. What are you interested in? Well, I was interested in marine biology, so that's what I'm going to be. Where will I do my work? Perhaps I work at a place like SeaWorld, but marine biologists can actually work out in the ocean. So perhaps I'm in a boat with all my tools. What kind of equipment? What would I have with me as a tool to be a marine biologist should be in my picture? And what am I wearing? If I'm a marine biologist, I'm sure I have a wetsuit. I'm sure I have protective gear on my eyes. I probably have a scuba tank maybe. So you're going to think of yourself as a scientist. And we're going to be on our left side, so we're very colorful. Let me show you an example of a former student's picture and how creative she got.